Welcome to episode 2 of the Upgrade Your Life podcast. We have a special interview today with nootropics expert Jeffrey Howard. And you may be asking yourself, what are nootropics? Have you ever wondered what supplements athletes or high performers use? Well, in this episode, we talk about nootropics, what they are, what to watch out for, some myths around nootropics, and ways to help improve your brain power. Stay tuned. So the big question is, how do ambitious people like us, who grew up listening to the old advice of go to school, work hard for 40 years, and retire when you're old, create a life today that is meaningful, abundant, healthy, and brings joy, while also leading a life that is productive and full of achievement? That is the question, and this is the podcast that will help give you the answers that you're searching for. My name is Del Denny, and welcome to the Upgrade Your Life podcast. Welcome to the Upgrade Your Life podcast. My name is Del Denny, and I'm excited to have you here today. We have a special guest. We have Jeffrey Howard. A little background on Jeffrey Howard. He's a serial entrepreneur, peak performance coach, bio-neurohacker, speaker, author, trainer, musician, and producer. Since 2000, Jeff has been CEO and Chief Visionary Officer of Mastermind Mentor International, specializing in personal development, business training, and peak performance coaching. Jeffrey, welcome to the podcast.
Del, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation. I appreciate being here. I love the work that you're doing. So I think we're going to have a good time today.
I think you're right. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Jeffrey Howard, and how did you get into this topic of nootropics?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, aside from what you delivered in the intro, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole life. I was one of those guys who, I had a lemonade stand or, selling my old books that I was outgrowing or a paper route or whatever since I was a little kid. But, I've been full-time entrepreneur, actually fired my last boss almost 25 years ago. I've had multiple careers, multiple businesses over time. I've had a career in the music business, as you mentioned, a musician, producer, songwriter, recording studio owner. And I built my whole business, like my whole core of my business around personal development, coaching, and that's ultimately launched into, because I'm kind of a big tech geek, and when it comes to how things operate in the online marketing space, I got into business coaching as well. But this past year, we launched one of my biggest passion projects so far with Mastermind Nootropics, and that's primarily, I think, what we're going to be talking about today is nootropics. So, whether you know nothing about nootropics or you're interested in how you can use them to enhance your cognitive abilities, your energy, memory, creativity, focus, but you're not sure where to start, or maybe you've been using nootropics and you haven't really felt like you've gotten the results you're looking for, maybe I can give you some insights as to why, and hopefully this will be a great program for the listeners who are moving down that path.
Absolutely. And so nootropics is kind of a new thing to me. It's something I really enjoy and something that I'm studying. And I was talking to a friend the other day about nootropics, and he's like, what is nootropics? So for those that are new to this whole new thing, give us a little background. What are nootropics? Kind of for someone that knows nothing about it, how would you explain what nootropics are?
Sure. Well, I mean, let's start with just a straight up Wikipedia definition. So nootropics are basically either drugs or supplements or other substances that can improve cognitive function, particularly in the area of executive functions like memory, creativity, motivation, typically in healthy individuals. So basically, if you want to, increase your focus, increase your energy, have the ability to stay on task, basically turbocharge your brain, really move into a more high performance brain, that's kind of where it starts. Now, with our company, we've gone kind of outside the scope of that. The space has really evolved. Now there are products in numerous categories of performance enhancement that are also categorized as nootropics. But for the purposes of this conversation, I think we're going to focus mostly on the brain enhancing qualities.
Perfect. I think about, when I was thinking about this, I think about that movie Limitless. Did you ever see that movie Limitless?
As a matter of fact, if you really want to go back to the beginning and what got me interested and involved in this space in the first place, it was actually that movie. Limitless was released back in 2011 with Bradley Cooper. And it was about a down and out author who'd run across an old friend who turned him onto this clear pill that basically opened up 100% of his brain power. Now, in the movie, of course, there were a bunch of bizarre side effects that were all part of the overall plot. But the whole concept was just fascinating to me. It was really, really interesting. And, I'd already heard of guys in Silicon Valley in the tech space in particular experimenting with things like that. I'd researched it a little bit, like modafinil, which is a synthetic product, and even, amphetamine type products, like, people were sort of abusing Adderall, which is really made for ADD, ADHD. And I knew for me, I wanted to minimize the synthetic components and definitely stay away from pharmaceuticals because that's just how I live my life. So I basically went on a journey to see, what I could find in the natural, herbal, and ideally organic space.
I like that. And I think that if we talked about the movie for a second, just going back, if I remember, he took this little pill, but it had all these side effects to it. And I think that may what scare some people today. But thinking about an herbal route, a holistic route, that's pretty interesting. So you saw the movie that got you interested about it. So tell me, what made that so interesting? Where were you at in your life? And when did you say, what, nootropics is an avenue I want to learn more about?
Well, I've always been kind of I don't know, I guess an amateur brain researcher, for lack of a better way to put it. I've always been really fascinated with what we can do with the power of our brain. We've learned more about the brain and its functions in the last 5 years than we have in the previous 500 years. So for me, it was really about, is there something possible? Like, can we even get a fractional level of the result that we saw in that movie? And obviously without the side effects. The side effects were pretty horrible. In the movie, they had, the secret, what did they call it? I forget. It was some kind of a shot that they could take to offset the side effects and keep the thing peaking. But yeah, I understand. Like, people do get, I think, a little concerned if they think about it in terms of the movie, because those side effects were pretty horrible. But, for me, I was just really looking for an enhanced performance across the board, mental performance, physical performance. As entrepreneurs, we're constantly in a creative space. We're either creating a new idea, creating a new system, or marketing to it, a new vertical, something along that line. And if you can be firing on all cylinders, I think it just really enhances every area of your life, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And I do use nootropics as well. I speak, and before I get up on stage, I want to make sure that I have sharpness as I get up on stage. I'm thinking, 2 steps ahead, if you will. I'll be delivering a presentation, and I can tell the difference in myself between having nootropics and not having nootropics. So can you give the listeners some ideas of what type of nootropics that are out there that might help them?
Well, sure. I mean, we can go into a pretty deep dive on this if you want. I mean, generally, like, let's first look at the potential benefits. And we've talked a little bit about just the basic breakdown, but, cognitive enhancement, increased memory, the ability to maintain focus, reduce distractions, higher levels of overall energy and reduction of aging brain symptoms like memory loss, brain fog, lack of focus. On stage, of course, it makes a big difference in terms of your, if you're doing the right things, in terms of your sort of lateral thinking, the ability to kind of build on an idea, if you're not working off of a script, being able to, the critical thinking skills that result from nootropics tend to be, enhanced as well, and creativity. And then, again, with the right things, even abundant physical performance. So, when it comes to the specifics, look, everybody, I think, is, in general terms, we're kind of tuned to the same radio station. It's called WIIFM. It's what's in it for me. So I think the most important aspect for most people is going to come down to how it's going to help them specifically, either with an issue that they have, or with something they'd like to enhance, and maybe they don't even realize it yet. Why should they even care about this? And I mean, I could go dive it deeply into the science for the people out there like me who are kind of nerdy about it, but mostly that's pretty boring, I think, for a lot of us. And most people just want to know, like, how do we get started? What should we care about? So I think to start off, it might make sense to talk about this sort of general areas that nootropics cover. So, and then we can talk about some of the specifics. And brain chemistry, which is really important in this whole thing. And brain chemistry is actually one of the topics here. One of the key elements. When you look at the big picture, you want to look at brain chemistry. And your brain creates, or it catalyzes, a long laundry list of powerful chemicals that control memory, processing speed, mood, attention, creativity, And I mean, everything, hormones, sleep, sex, there's a long list of chemistry. So your brain chemistry is controlling most of that. So what's happening in your brain chemistry is important to your overall view of this. Mental energy is something you want to consider with your nootropic blends. Feeding the right nutrients into your brain to increase the energy and support mental focus and mental agility, acuity, quick thinking, and also eliminating some of the things I talked about, like brain fog and mental fatigue, which happens a lot. Like you travel a lot, you're on the road a lot, probably not 100% of the time able to eat the way you want to eat because you're on the road. So that brain fog and mental fatigue that can come from making bad food choices can be offset as well by taking a nootropic. Third area to consider in this is brain circulation or microcirculation. So just like it sounds, this is about getting more blood into and out of your brain. That increases oxygen, it detoxes your neurons, improves the delivery of brain nutrition. And of course, one key factor here is getting that proper nutrition past the blood-brain barrier. Blood-brain barrier is basically a filter that allows in or doesn't allow in things based on what it feels is what your brain and body feels is going to be beneficial to you. You have to look at brain protection, so toxicity, fighting the unhealthy structural changes in the brain that tend to degrade over time and through aging if you don't address them. Neurogenesis, this is a really interesting aspect to me. Basically, neurogenesis, it's just a big fancy word that means the ability to basically rejuvenate a brain cell or regenerate a brain cell. But that also includes repair or maintenance or nourishment or plasticity of the brain and the brain cells. So probably most of us have come from, or are old enough to have come from an educational background that says that where somebody told us that you can't regenerate a brain cell. Like once you've killed a brain cell, whether it's your brain on dope, like the old commercials back in the 70s, this is your brain on dope, or alcohol or the other, stress, the other things that tend to degrade the brain cell function. We've been told that you cannot regenerate a brain cell, but not only are we discovering now that you can actually regenerate neurons, but the plasticity component, which basically means that your brain has the ability to rewire itself, or like for example, when you get someone with a traumatic brain injury, a lot of times they're able to reconnect the dots, so to speak, because their brain rewires itself around the injured area and finds a way to do all those functions that the injury stopped it from doing by doing this regeneration of the synaptic functions, if that makes sense. So, and the last thing too is the actual brain wave function. So your brain is firing at a certain frequency at all times. Most of us throughout our day, with the stressors and the things that are going on, we're in this beta or high beta state, makes us feel a little bit sort of anxious and stressed out all the time. But the ideal brainwave state to be in, if you're speaking or if you're writing or doing anything creative or learning even, is the alpha state. And the alpha brainwave state, it promotes a state of calm alertness. It's ideal for creativity, learning, focus, productivity. Of course, theta is where deep creativity comes in, the big downloads that we get from the universe. That's typically happening in meditation or any area where you're just really slowing down your body and slowing down your mind. So those are really 6 key areas that you need to focus on when you're choosing nootropics. And I'm not actually sure if I answered your question directly, but I think it's important to kind of build a foundation for people who are listening.
No, I really like that. I learned a lot from that. You spoke of, I travel a lot. And so obviously when you're traveling, the elements are against you, you're on airplanes, you're not getting the best nutrition. So what would you recommend for someone like me that is going through those things that needs a little edge or, to fire on all cylinders, so to speak?
Well, there's something that's kind of like my basic fundamental belief about anything that's in the biohacking or neurohacking space. And that's that, this is, I think, one of the things, this is what I set out to do when I wanted to create our own product line. One of the things that I noticed is that there's this sort of one size fits all approach by most companies. They kind of look at, and honestly, I find this incredibly annoying. It's the same thing in, pharmaceuticals or over-the-counter drugs or whatever. It's like take 2 pills every 4 hours. And it doesn't matter if you're, a woman who's 5'2", 120 pounds, or a man who's 6'4", 250. Mm-hmm. It's all the same for everybody. Does that make any sense? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Not at all.
so that was the first thing that kind of triggered it in my brain. So and I don't want to divert from your question, but I really want to build a core understanding and really a belief in the people who are listening, and for you as well, is, the answer to the question is, I don't actually know what's going to be the best thing for you. You know better than me. And you can also make those choices based on knowledge that you build over time. So any good biohacker is looking at their life as an ongoing experiment, because we change, we evolve from a day-to-day basis, on month-to-month, year-to-year, and of course over time, decades of time, right? So, what's going to be the right thing for you today is probably not going to be the right thing for you in 90 days. That's why we got into this whole concept of customization of nootropics. So a lot of people are looking at, okay, I'm not going to name brands because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but there's 3 or 4 pretty good sized companies out there that have a big chunk of the market share in the nootropic space right now. And they're all basically promoting the same dosage for everyone, regardless, without knowing anything about them. So to me, it makes sense to ask the questions, what am I looking for? And then, look for something that allows you to customize based on not only what are you looking for as an outcome, but what you're looking for, or what's your own physiology. Are you male, female? Are you, in good health? Are you in great shape? Are you looking to increase your physical performance? What do you actually want? And we make that process really easy for you in what we do. So again, I'm not trying to be evasive on the question, but I think it's kind of like, that question.
I love that. I think that is the answer right there, because I don't like the one size fits all. I don't want the same dosage. I'm a 6 foot male, 200 plus pounds, and I don't think the dosage should be the same thing for someone that's a smaller frame than me. So I totally understand that. What's the biggest challenge that you see when people are getting into nootropics? What advice would you give them?
Well, if you're talking about like when people are first getting started, I think it's probably lack of knowledge is the biggest challenge. And again, that's why we're having this conversation today. This nootropic space, it's exploding right now. I mean, there are literally hundreds of products out there. And that's not even including all the different elements that if you do a little research, that you can take the individual elements and then stack them all together on your own if you choose to go down that path. So I think the biggest challenge is having some basic education. And that was really my goal today, is to kind of give people maybe a little bit more of a counterintuitive approach, or not a counterintuitive approach, because I think people should stay intuitive and always be aware of what's going on in their own body, but say a counter marketing approach, something that's a little bit different than what the market itself is trying to feed you. I mean, when I first started out, I didn't know where I was going at all. I did some research. I talked to the handful. I mean, there were very few people when I first started that were really into this. And obviously it's becoming a much bigger thing now. But, I just wish I would have been able to understand a little bit more how everything worked. I want, with our clients and our customers, I want you to be able to take the products on an ongoing basis. And with us, you can. I mean, like with some products, they recommend that you cycle off of them for a week at a time every 3 months, or, make sure you only do them 5 days a week. And why do you think that is? It's, because it's the same thing that you're taking every day. You're building up a tolerance to it. It's not been formulated so that you don't build up a tolerance to it. And you have to cycle off so you don't build up that tolerance, lose effectiveness, and also, basically, have the side effects that are sometimes built into some of these products. So I guess for me, I wish that I would have known more when I got started, but you can't do that. Like it's like, you have to rub the magic genie bottle, right? You can't turn back time and just download all the things that you learn over time. So my goal today really is just to help people to shortcut the process, to give some perspective, maybe a better perspective on how to get started.
I love that. So as you've gone down this journey, what's one common myth about nootropics that you want to debunk?
Well, that's pretty, we kind of touched on it already. I think that's pretty easy. I'd say that the most common myth is that the product that you buy is going to work for you in the same way that it does for the other people that you saw in the testimonials.
Mm.
So, that's, again, one of the main things that drove me to find a way to deliver customizable nootropic stacks is that it just never made sense to me, even with drugs, that it's the standard off the shelf mentality. They don't take into consideration any elements, not your physiology, your gender, like we talked about, height, weight, but what about your health status? What about other supplements that you're taking that might interact with it? What about other pharmaceuticals you might be taking that might decrease the effectiveness or create, some kind of a problem? So, the whole one size fits all concept always kind of annoyed me a little bit. So I just sought out to do something about that.
I love it. You're an expert in this field. What gets your curiosity about nootropics today? What's the evolving science? What piques your curiosity?
Well, this is such an exciting and wide open space right now. I'm really curious about what we're going to discover next in terms of new ingredients, new combinations. What we're going to learn about the brain and body as we move forward. Look, like I said, Del, we've learned more about how the human brain operates over the last 5 years than over the last 5,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, between technology and evolution, I think we're really in for some exciting times. I'm curious what kind of feedback the marketplace is going to provide, whether people are going to really catch on to, is this, like, some people think this is a fad, or, I've heard people call it a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't look at it like that at all. I look at this as enhancing your body with something that your body already wants so that it can perform at its peak level. And you can't get it just by eating, the right organic foods, or, there's some things that your body can evolve with that it doesn't have access to in your normal diet or in your normal ingestion of anything. So you do have to supplement. I'm a strong believer in supplements. I take a bunch of different supplements. I take nootropics every day. Of course, ours are totally customized. And the nice thing about what we do is that not only can you customize it based on what you think you want right now, but you can take that for a week or a month or whatever your first round is, and then you can tweak it again. You say, oh, okay, well, I need a little less stimulation, a little bit more focus. There's just a whole plethora of things that you can adjust just by filling out the form. And then, we literally, like with our company, Mastermind Nootropics, there's not a product sitting in a bottle on a shelf, not anywhere in the whole facility. It's all the ingredients that are there. So we get the customization. You place your order, we get the customization form, and then it's literally put together for you on the spot. And then we're not sitting there with another bottle waiting for your next order. We're waiting for your next order to create the next bottle. Does that make sense?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I absolutely love that. What do you advise on? So people that are wanting to get into nootropics, what is important so that people know, like, I don't want to waste money. I've tried all these pills and all these gadgets. I've gone to, these different stores and got these things. What can I do so I'm not wasting my money? Where can I go? What can I do to get these supplements?
Well, I don't want to sound incredibly self-serving here, but I'm going to keep coming back to customization. It all starts with understanding the basic concept that we're all unique, not just in physiology, but in what we want as a desired outcome. So, you can spend a lot of time, like I did, experimenting and trying a zillion different things, or you can start somewhere where you'll be able to customize based on your own individual needs and outcome and physiology. So, I feel like I'm starting to sound redundant with this, but, to me, the way to save a lot of time and money is to get the thing that you want from the beginning without relying on what somebody else thinks or says about it in a testimonial. If you are convinced or feel confident that X list of ingredients is going to do the trick for you, then it's a matter of putting those ingredients together in a way that makes sense. We can do that for you. You want to pay also attention to the extraction processes and how the elements of your stacks interact with each other. I touched on that a little bit already. And here's another thing I noticed as a trend, and I mean, I'm sorry, but I just kind of call it like it is most of the time. There's a lot of companies that throw the latest, hottest new ingredient into their compounds without really looking at the big picture of how it reacts with other ingredients, or whether it's going to be bioavailable. Or here's a big one that I've noticed lately, Del. They tout this hot new ingredient, but since it's expensive usually, and to keep their profit margins in place, they just don't use enough of it to be effective. So, I mean, if you really want to shortcut the process, I would encourage you to try what we have and work with it for a little while, customize it and tweak it, and let's get the right formula that's made specifically for you.
I love that. That is awesome. I'm stoked to see this customization here. Got a question for you. Every guest has this question. If you could turn back time and talk to your 18-year-old self, I think that was just yesterday, right? What advice would you give yourself for reaching your full potential?
Del, that's just such a great question. I love that question. I actually kind of explore variations of that question on a regular basis. I think the best advice is to follow your passion. And I don't mean that in the sort of the way that it's mostly used these days, go out and do what you love and the money will follow kind of passion. I think it's important that you do something that gets you out of bed in the morning for sure. But here's the thing. When you get those little messages from the universe, or however you view that, those little ideas, those little inspirations, just don't overthink it. If I was telling myself this as an 18-year-old from what I know now, when those things come through, don't overthink it. Just start taking action toward making it happen. Things tend to line up and synchronize when you do that. And when you think about it too much, or you try to make it perfect before you take it out in the world, a lot of times somebody can beat you to it if you wait too long, or you talk yourself out of it, or the people around you end up talking you out of it, kind of chipping away at your inspiration or your enthusiasm about it. So, I would say the best advice that I would give my 18-year-old self is to take inspired action every day. And in fact, honestly, that's pretty good advice for my 60-year-old self now too.
I love it. That's great advice right there. I've learned so much about nootropics in this podcast. I know people are going to be listening to this and wanting to know a little bit more. So where can people get in touch with you?
Okay, well, we've got a couple different ways to do that. One is I put together something actually, you know what? I would love to offer your audience just, access to some of my best overall life and business hacks. So, I've got my 77hacks.com. It's 77hacks.com. You can go there and that will provide you with just basically a free gift of, 77 of my best peak performance hacks for your life and your business. If you want to learn more about nootropics, or if you're interested in trying what we've discussed here, customized nootropics, I've set up something special just for your audience. So you can go to mastermindnootropics.com, or the short version is mmnoots.com, MMNOOTS. Nootropics is NOOTROPICS. Sometimes people call it neurotropics, and that's actually not accurate. So mastermindnootropics.com or mmnoots.com. You can use the coupon code DEL20, and that will get 20% discount for anybody who's listening. Or you can just go straight to del.mmnoots.com, and that discount will automatically be plugged in for whatever you put in the cart. If you want to learn more about me, or having me on speaking gigs, podcasts, or any of the trainings or coaching consulting that I do, you can go to mastermindmentor.com. And honestly, I'm wide open to, even doing, to the extent of my availability to do it, short consultation with people who want to talk about anything from nootropics to your business project. So you can do that by just going straight to book15.mastermindmentor.com. And I think that should pretty well cover you.
All right. Beautiful. I'm excited. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to check out the customization. I'm very excited for that. Jeff, thank you for coming on the podcast. I learned a lot. And let's go to the website, mastermindnootropics.com.
Appreciate it, Del. And, I appreciate the work that you're doing as well. I've got a couple blog posts up there, by the way, that go into a lot more detail than we did today for people. I've got a Nootropics 101 blog post on the website at mastermindmentor.com. And actually, it's on the Nootropics site as well. And another one that I'll be publishing in the next couple of days here that's going to get a little bit more into the way we do our stacks and why we choose the ingredients that we do and what they specifically do in your mind and body. So a lot more details to come. Thank you again for inviting me to be part of your show, and good luck with everything you're doing. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed our interview with Jeffrey Howard on the subject of nootropics. Again, he's put together something special for our listeners of the Upgrade Your Life podcast. Make sure you head over to mastermindnootropics.com. You can see the link in the show notes. And also be sure to click the subscribe button so you can be notified when the next episode of the Upgrade Your Life podcast airs. Well, that's it for today. This is Del Denny signing off. And remember, learn, lead, and live to your full potential.